Welcome, friends, to the Garden Show. I'm Ginny Vance with the Bella Vista Garden Club and a Master Gardener of Benton County. And with me today, I have Colleen Walpert, Deidre Cheney, and Robyn Kirkland. Thank you for joining. We are going to be talking today about the pros and cons of planting native plants. We're going to do a roundtable discussion, and we're each going to kind of talk about what we know about native plants. So the first thing I need to talk about is some kind of special upcoming events. Our Benton County Master Gardeners meeting is next Tuesday, or I should say next month, Tuesday, November 5th. And the Bella Vista Garden Club's meeting, the next meeting is earlier this year because of voting, October 16th, starting at 9:30. Our next big event is our annual card party and board game party on Friday, October 18th from 11 to 4. It will be at the St. Bernard's Church, at the Catholic Church here in Bella Vista, and we will be serving an awesome lunch and a wonderful raffle baskets that we have. Every year these raffle baskets get bigger and bigger. And also this year we're going to be having a silent auction, which is new, so it'll be fun. So reserve your table by visiting our website, bellavistagardenclub.com. Another thing I'd like to thank is our director level sponsors for this show is the Benton County Master Gardeners and the Bella Vista Garden Club. We are so fortunate to have them support this program and the knowledge that they bring to us. So let's get into some fun things about what we're going to talk about and go from there. The first thing that we're going to talk about is a very fun discussion about the pros and the cons about the native beds. And a lot of native plants don't always look real good. Some are good, the bad, and the ugly. So anyway, let's get into talking about a little bit about the Bella Vista Garden Club had broke ground on a native demonstration bed at the Village Wastewater Treatment Plant where we have our plant sale. And we started this in November of 2021. And we broke ground, and we had nothing but weeds, rocks, and stones that we were dealing with, and we were so thankful that the wastewater treatment plant gave us soil to cover up what we could. So, Colleen, can you explain to us a little bit about what a native plant is?
Yes. By definition, a native plant is a plant that was indigenous to our area before European settlement. So you have to go way back to when people started coming over from Europe and also from Asia. They brought things with them that they were familiar with, which have sort of naturalized into our horticulture, but they're not true natives. And so it had to have been a plant that was here prior to European settlement to be considered a native. There are different kinds of natives. Some native range all the way from the East Coast all the way usually up to the Rockies, or they'll go from Florida up through the center part of the United States, or they'll be from the west over. There's generally kind of a dividing line in moisture and soils, how those plants stay natural. So like, for example, the eastern redbud. You always think of that as being, a redbud tree is in Missouri and Arkansas. It's also all the way over to the East Coast, and they're native there as well. So it doesn't have to be just to your area. If just to your area, it's called endemic. And there are very few plants that are true endemics because it has to be an isolated area. Frequently, as even pioneers would come through an area, they would drop seed or they would bring a plant, and those endemic plants very often were taken over and they become extinct because other, even native plants, will take those over. The closest endemic plant that I could find here is a maple-leafed oak tree on Mount Magazine. That's the closest one to this area that's truly endemic, which is kind of interesting. All the rest of the endemic plants have been naturalized with other, even natives.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing.
That's an interesting thing.
With our different bed that we, when we planted the bed down at the native garden bed that we had, we had to prepare the soil, and the soil was so bad that we had to put leaves, we had to put compost, we had to put different types of combinations of things in order to prepare this bed. It was quite a process, and these three ladies have been, within the last 3-4 years, have been very active in trying to support that bed and trying to plant and try to keep things active. So, Robyn, when you start a native bed, what are the first things you should consider?
Well, I think that the first thing to consider would be the things that you consider with any other bed. So your site, you're going to how much shade, your access to water, how much you're going to have to amend your ground, and what's already there. Do you want to plant around what you already have, plant some natives around that, or do you want to have just a native bed? Our bed is just natives, but that doesn't mean that you can't incorporate natives into the landscape that you already have, which is probably a good idea because, like you said, natives don't always look so great once they go past their prime. But it's just anything that you would consider: access to water, the ground that's already there, what you already have, sun or shade, the usual.
The usual, yeah. Well, I think not all native plants, like you said, look good in a manicured yard, but I think we need to incorporate the native plants as much as possible, because, like I said, there's pros and cons. I think there's important things that we need to plant native plants in order to support the bees.
Yes.
I wore my little shirt today to support the bees, and the pollinator part of that. So it's important for us to incorporate what we can with the native beds. So Deidre, if I was a gardener and wanted to incorporate a native plant in my bed, what would you recommend?
Well, you mentioned the bees. So if
The
you have a
bees.
sunny spot, the
Yeah.
asters are great because they're just covered in bees right now. They look like they're alive with
Yes.
bees. But the other flowers that do good are cone flowers and wine cup in the sun. And if you got not so much sun, then you can do the Amazonia blue star or the wild indigos or sweet spire or ferns, columbine.
One plant that did so well in my garden this year was the coreopus. The coreopus that I had, it was a native plant that I had gotten, I think, from the master gardeners. That grew and started in like April, and it flowered and flowered and flowered all summer long, and all season long. And I went ahead and cut it halfway down. You know, some of the sedums you've got to cut down. I cut that halfway down, and it grew in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks back again. So that was massive.
Coreopsis is a really good plant. I think it's interesting. There's a certain time of the year when the Chelsea flower show is in England.
Yes.
A lot of woody stemmed plants benefit from what they call the Chelsea chop. So you just go out there and, the flower show's on, let's give these a halfway chop. And then the sedum doesn't flop over so much and the coreopsis rejuvenates. But with just the little dab of rain, I mean, we are so dry right now, and we try really hard not to water that native bed any more than we absolutely have to, just to keep the plants alive. I think we've only supplementally watered it twice this year.
Wow.
With a big soak. And if you go over there and see it, there lots of stuff has said, oh, I think I'll go to bed now and see you next spring. They're done.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, the coreopsis is blooming, the asters are blooming. There are some, of course, goldenrod is blooming, some coneflowers, and those are just, what is growing. One of the things about native bed is you shouldn't have to use so much water, and we always try to be water wise. I love the plants that take a lot of water. I love hydrangeas, and I love azaleas, and I love all that stuff, and I have those. But if you have some native plants in there, or you have a native bed, you can start cutting back on some of the extensive watering that we do to keep things looking nice.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. Well, and like you said, you've got your water-wise plants, and the sedums are one of them.
Yeah.
That are just beautiful right now. But if you overwatered them, they flop.
Right.
Or,
Right.
they're not looking really good right now.
There aren't too many sedums that are native, but in your regular beds, the sedums
incorporate.
don't take a lot. You can incorporate some of your, I think it's interesting, there's a certain time of the year when the chelsea flower show is in England. A lot of woody stemmed plants benefit from what they call the Chelsea chop. So you just go out there and, the flower show's on, let's give these a halfway chop. And then the sedum doesn't flop over so much and the coreopsis rejuvenates. But a lot of them, the coreopsis is blooming, your natives that don't take water with some non-natives that don't take water. And so you try to balance that. So, and that's how you can put them in the same beds. I think that's a great idea.
So many people want to just naturalize their gardens and not have to water. They think it's easy to do and easy to maintain, but it really isn't. I mean, you can let it go, but it's not, like you said, it's not manicured.
Right.
It's not manicured. So, Colleen, I know this is a subject that we all kind of talk about. Should we be digging up plants along the highway that we think are native?
Well, probably should not be doing that, because that's not your land, you know. As I walk up and down the streets in Bella Vista, the things that are in the easement that I know the mowers are going to go over, sometimes I will dig stuff up out of the easement, you know, but you should actually ask permission before you go onto someone's land and start digging things out of there. And you probably shouldn't be digging them up on the side of the highway either. All that red clover that's growing out there on the side of the highway, that's not native anyway, so you don't dig that up. But I think it would be an interesting project. And Deidre, you've even mentioned when you see a contractor going in and starting to clear a property, you know, they're going to clear cut that. And if you could maybe contact the contractor or contact the homeowner that lets you go in and dig the natives off of that land prior to them clear cutting it, I think that would be a nice way to, you know, bring natives into your beds, you know, if you can do that. So
Goldenrods are all over in our
they're
ditches
beautiful.
right now.
They are
And they're so
beautiful.
beautiful. But don't dig them up.
no.
They can be, I mean, they're native, but they can be very aggressive. There is goldenrod that isn't as aggressive.
But you know,
there's-
goldenrod does not cause fall seasonal allergies.
I know.
The
Isn't it
pollen is
interesting?
too heavy. It has to be carried by a pollinator from plant to plant. It doesn't blow in the air.
Yep.
So goldenrod got a bad rap for years.
Yeah,
about
it's the ragweed.
It's ragweed.
It's the ragweed.
It's not the
yes,
goldenrod.
yes. So many of our plants that we have in our native bed was gifted to us by Lou Jasper, who is a garden club member and also a master gardener. She was so helpful in sharing with us her knowledge about the native plants. We also had gotten a lot of our plants from the Northwest Arkansas master naturalist who donated plants. So many of these plants, like I said, had been gifted to us by Lou, and we planted here and there. So we have a picture of Lou when we dedicated the garden bed to her. She's no longer with us. She moved back to Iowa, but we dedicated our garden to her in August of 2022, and we miss her dearly. So she had gifted, you know, she was a knowledge to all of us. I think Colleen and Robyn and Deidre, she shared so much with us, and we're so thankful for that. So anyway, Robyn, we have in our native plant bed close to 40 different varieties of native plants. We have a list of those that we can share with you on our website. Also, Robyn, can you share with us some of what is in our bed that is currently blooming?
Oh, you would have to put that on there.
currently blooming.
The asters are blooming. They're very nice to put in your gardens because they are late. They give something to the pollinators at a later stage where a lot of things just bloom in spring. They're gone. Their foliage may be pretty, but the insects have something to nectar on, something to eat, something to gather pollen on. And the solidagos. What else is blooming? Oh, coneflowers.
Yep.
Coneflowers have a long season. They had kind of stopped through the hottest part, but now they're blooming again. What else have we got, you guys? That's blooming right now.
Blue stem, grasses. The grasses
The
are
grasses.
yeah. The grasses are
The grasses are putting on a little bit of bud and
right.
blooming. out.
Coreopus is still blooming.
Yeah.
Some of the Texas green eyes.
Yeah,
Texas green eyes.
And they smell so good.
Do they?
Yeah, they
They're
have
really
a wonderful
pretty,
herbal
have
scent.
a long bloom season, and they'll make your garden smell really pretty.
And they do propagate themselves. You know,
Oh, yes.
they easily reseed.
Yes.
In our garden bed right now, they a lot of our plants, like I said, are still fall blooming, but the best time to come to the bed would be, what would you say, June? July?
I think June, during our June plant sale, they were spectacular.
Yeah, they were really pretty.
Everything that blooms in the summer was blooming the first
So
week of June.
we like,
Primrose, oh, they were gorgeous.
yeah, they were beautiful.
The butterfly weed was beautiful.
The wine cup.
The wine cup was beautiful.
So Deidre, working in the native bed the last 3-4 years, what are some plants that have done well and not so well?
I think that the shrubs and trees have done the best, except for a few, like we tried planting sassafras in there and it never made it. And then that leatherwood died. But everything else.
In one day.
The button, oh wait, boneset did too
Which
good.
Oh, the boneset does
The
too
boneset
well.
did too good.
The boneset, yeah.
We had to take it out. But
Did that overtook the bed, didn't it?
yeah,
It would have.
Yeah.
yeah.
So the bed that we have down there is not a landscape bed per se, it's just for demonstration. We've got plants kind of scattered throughout, and we're always working through that bed to try to put plants so that it's easy and accessible. So it's kind of fun. So each of us, even myself, when I go into my garden, I have a favorite. So Robyn, what's your favorite of the native blade?
My favorite is mountain mint. It's a beautiful, what is it? It's a shrub, I guess. It's
Or perennial, small shrub, perennial.
Yeah, small shrub, perennial. But it's beautiful, and it's on any native top 10 pollinator list that you find. Mountain mint will be right at the top of that list. It's just a beautiful plant. It has a gray-green leaf. It has a tremendous smell, and it gets these beautiful light lilac-covered buds over the whole plant. It is in the mint family. It moves around, it spreads around a little bit, but I would not call it invasive. You can find it in the fields and on your walks. You can sometimes spot it, but you'll notice that when you do spot it, it won't be just everywhere, so that tells you that it's not an aggressive plant. A lot of people are very afraid of mints, but this one pretty much behaves itself. We have to keep it in check a little bit, but it's just a beautiful, wonderful native. My favorite.
Colleen, and how about you? What's your favorite?
I like the blue star. And the one we have in the native bed is the Amsonia blue star. It gets about 4 feet tall, I'd say, maybe 4 by 4. It's a shrub. It moves blue. It blooms most beautiful blue blooms in the summer. And it stays green. So like if you go to the native bed now, you'll see a lot of the shrubs and plants are, like I said, starting to go dormant. It's still green. It was a huge drought. We walked over there one day thinking, oh my gosh, the bed's going to be in terrible shape. Not the blue star. It's just fluffy and green, and it doesn't take over. And I've been seeing it in a lot of landscapes. Like down in hospitals are starting to replace some of their non-natives with natives, and a lot of places I've seen blue stars planted because they're just such a nice shape. You don't have to prune them. They don't take a lot of care, and they're just a beautiful shrub to have.
And they only grow like 5 feet. I mean, they're tall. And
They're about 5 by 5 or 4 by 4, but there are some smaller ones too. We went to the Compton native plant sale, and I picked one up that particular variety is only supposed to get 2 by 2. So I'm going to be excited. I'm putting that in my own garden to see how it does. Hopefully it'll stay small like that.
And the leaf on that is the Arkansas one has a more leafy leaf, like a more
They're fine bladed.
fine
They're real
leaf.
fluffy looking. They're it's a different look than most native shrubs, and I think that's
and
probably
they
why I
bloom in
like
the
it.
spring, right?
Spring and summer.
Spring and summer.
Yeah.
Deidre, and how about you?
I think I like the wild indigos the best.
Oh.
With the stalks when they bloom, they're yellow or blue or white or cream colored, I think. But even when they're not blooming, they're really pretty with the kind of glossy foliage. And
I have a blue indigo in
Different
my
leaf
yard,
shape,
and after it finishes blooming, it seeds,
Yeah.
and so those seed pods kind of stay there, and it's in the shape of those. They stay really nice shaped.
they do.
They do, and
Yeah.
they don't. They're not aggressive of how some of the plants get leggy. I call it. And that, the wild indigo doesn't. It's beautiful. and when it blooms in the spring, because it's a spring bloomer, right? Yeah. I want to say one of my favorite plants of the native bed and at home too. Like I would say I've got 2 coreopus. I really like the coreopus. It does well for me, and it's just a beautiful plant, and the bees and the butterflies just love it.
They do.
So I have to tell you a story. Mona Tate from our garden club, last meeting, she had gifted me 7 monarch caterpillars. So I brought them home and put them in by the coreopus and by the milkweed, and I've got two monarch butterflies this morning. I went out there, so I went out there to look, and I go, oh my gosh, I've got some butterflies today. I was so excited. But they like that, like I said, the native area. They really like the pollinator garden area with the native plants. So it's so fun to see your gardens grow.
Yeah.
It really is.
And monarchs use a lot of plants for nectar.
Yep.
They're maybe a nectar plant. The caterpillars only eat milkweed. So you want milkweed for your monarchs, but the monarchs will eat. Will use the nectar from a lot of different plants. They aren't restricted to that. So some of them are host plants and some are nectar plants.
Yeah. So let's talk about the difference between. A lot of people think native plants are invasive, and they get confused between the two. So, Deidre, can you kind of talk about the difference between what's invasive and what isn't?
I thought Colleen was going to discuss that.
Oh,
but,
sorry about that.
We can do it together.
I can tell you some of the invasive ones are the princess trees that are real tall with great big leaves, and it's like, we don't belong here, Yeah. Look on them, and the burning bush. And I planted some mountain mint to keep the wild blackberries at bay, because it said that they have aggressive roots too, so keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah, keep your fingers crossed, yeah. I've got
That's a good idea.
by my compost bin, I've got I can't think of the honeysuckle. Oh my gosh. And
Japanese honeysuckle?
Yes, and so I seen that, and I started pulling it down, and it keeps on coming up. Oh no. Well, and then I've spotted kudzu all over.
Kudzu is everywhere.
Just another one that's bad.
Washington County has, I think, more kudzu than Benton County.
Oh, it's awful.
It's everywhere. It just
There's
swallows everything.
There's a huge patch of it just if you go out where 49, you get on 49 over by Highlands, just go across, look to the right, it's covered with kudzu. It's completely covered, yeah. Most of those things, and a lot of things were introduced as trying to be helpful, but then it's not the right area for them, and they've taken over where the natives are, like kudzu was introduced to control. They put it on the sides of the highway. And crown vetch is one. Lespedeza was one. All of them are invasive, and they've taken over our native. They should have been planting little blue stem or something like that instead of bringing those in. There are some native wild roses, but Rosa rugosa was planted, and it was not native, and it took over the farmers' fields. It took over I was a Girl Scout. We planted roses all along the farmers' fences for them, and it just took over, and it not native because it wasn't native. And people are learning now, don't bring in non-native things for erosion control, and they just go crazy.
They go crazy. Well, and the key is, like I said, you have to do some research about what grows here in our area as far as what a native plant is. There's so many resources out on the web. There's some key ones that are local. There's an Arkansas, I believe, Deidre, you had found Arkansas Society for, what was the?
Native plants.
The Arkansas Society of Native Plants. It was so helpful out there with the different resources that you've got. So, Arkansas and our area, and because of our zone, we have a lot of native plants, and we need to incorporate them in our gardens as much as possible. So, anyway, we've got this native demonstration, native garden bed that we have is open to the public. And you're able to visit this anytime during working hours of the treatment plant. So don't hesitate to go down there. Hopefully next spring that we can do some demonstrations for different people. Hopefully we can do that, because I think it's important to share what our knowledge and what we have grown. And there's a lot of questions. People see natives and they go, when does it bloom? How big does it get?
Where should I plant it?
Where should I plant it?
What goes with it?
What goes with it? And hopefully we'll be able to share that with anybody who wants to come. So we'll keep you posted on something maybe next spring, when in June or July. I hope that you've enjoyed our program, and I want to thank Deidre, Colleen, and Robyn for your knowledge and what you brought to us today. You guys have really worked hard to keep that bed going. There's one thing I forgot, though, weeds. Can you talk real quick about the weeds and what you did? I just noticed that on my program.
Well, we did a thing this year. We kind of discussed, we try to keep the native bed as natural as possible, so we don't use any weed killers. And we hand pull everything, but Johnson grass and crabgrass is a real problem. So there's a thing called lasagna gardening that a lot of people incorporate into their gardens, and trying to use natural as much as possible. We laid heavy cardboard, overlapped cardboard, and then we put down leaves, and then on top of that we put soil, which then now breaks down and turns into soil because we have such poor soil. And it also has been a great weed barrier. When we did it, I said, I'm sorry if this doesn't work. We're spending a whole day doing this, but we do not have any weeds in that section. And the ones that have dropped, that just come right out. It's just amazing. So it is a wonderful way to prepare a bed without having to go in, and if you till the soil and stir it up, all you're going to do is stir up all those seeds, and they're going to come right back.
And rocks.
And rocks. So we're making soil naturally. So by adding native things. The only thing that's non-native is cardboard, and if we would have had a little bit more rain, it would be gone now too. It would just shred it up and turned right into soil. So, and it's made out of cellulose, so it's native anyway.
Well, and you can incorporate that in any
garden.
Any garden.
I did it in the corner of one of our yard. We moved into it's new, so we have nothing but rocks. And I just did a whole section. I said, I don't want to do too much because I don't know if there's going to be 12-foot weeds growing back here. And there's not a weed back there. It's wonderful. I have a whole section with no weeds.
Yeah.
And it's been a real successful experiment, and I think we'll add more to it in the bed as time goes on.
I think so. Well, again, thank you. I appreciate the knowledge that you've shared with us today. I would like to let you know we have both Benton County Master Gardeners and Bella Vista Garden Club have websites. Both websites are very full of information. The Benton County Master Gardeners website is out, like I said, bentoncountymastergardeners.com, and the Bella Vista Garden Club website is bellavistagardenclub.com. And our credits will be coming up soon, and be sure and visit them. Be sure and attend some of their meetings. We always welcome guests. We always encourage people to come to our meetings. And both of us, the Bella Vista Garden Club and the Benton County Arkansas Master Gardeners, both have Facebook pages. Again, thank you. Hopefully you've learned something about gardening with native plants. Thank you.